Let's go.
Welcome to the Trusted Leader Show. I'm your host, David Horsager. Join me as I sit down with influential leaders from around the world to discuss why leaders and organizations fail, top tactics for high performance, and how you can become an even more trusted leader. Welcome to the Trusted Leader Show. It's David Horsager. I have a special guest with today. He's part of the leadership team of the largest John Deere AG company in the world. 38 ag stores, 10 material handling stores. They were 14 stores when I started working with them and got to know them. So they've grown from under a couple 100,000 to significant, well over $1 billion organization. And what's more, he's just a great guy. And so I'm grateful to have you on. Welcome to the show, Kent Senf.
Hey, thanks, David. Glad to be here. Super excited to talk with you today.
Kent, you run a great home. You've got two beautiful daughters, Solveig and Bergen, and you've got an amazing wife. And they're golfers and they're academics. And tell us, just before we get into kind of leadership and other parts of life, what a couple other things to know about Kent Senf.
Well, thank you for for sharing about my daughters. Actually, I'd love to take credit for it, but as you know, my wife Beth does most of the hard lifting. They're great kids. One is going to St. Olaf College in Northfield, Minnesota. Plays golf there and is getting ready, hopefully, to go to law school at some point in time. And my youngest is a senior in high school and doing great things there. But a little bit about me: I'm from Fairmont, Minnesota. Farm town kid, much like yourself. Just happened to be really fortunate and blessed to be where I am today and be around people like yourself and many others that I work with every day. So I consider myself extraordinarily blessed.
Well, I am too, and just to know you, and I will tell you one of the most fun things, one of the first times I worked with you, this is over a decade ago, I think, but we jumped in your team jet, and we went out to several of the dealerships and got to talk trust, and we've done several things since then. But we've had some fun journey together, and your team has been doing some amazing things. What do you think, if we jump right in, and we're going to talk personal, we're going to talk leadership, we're going to talk company wise, but you've led in many different ways. What do you think it takes to kind of have an effective, high performing culture built on trust?
You know, let me step back to David for a second and say thank you. So back, I can't imagine if it was 12, 14 years ago. It was 14 years ago when I started at CMB. We were a regional player at the time and really was coming into an organization that was doing good things, but really needed to focus on some clarity and really get an understanding of the goals and where we wanted to head and consistency in where we're at. So we brought you in as well as some others. And one of the first things that we did back in the day is we looked at the mission statement of the company. And, you know, mission statement at that time was a lot of words and people didn't read them all the time. And so we broke it down really into three things to make it very clear. We broke it down into, we wanted to be the dealer of choice, really dealer or supplier of choice. We wanted to be the employer of choice for engaged employees, and we wanted to be the investment of choice for our stakeholders being customers and community and employees and suppliers and bankers and owners and everybody else. But what really happened was we talked a lot about that three-legged stool. And if one of the legs felt a higher priority than the others, well, then one of the core features of our mission statement felt out of balance. And so just by clearly going through the mission statement, getting everybody on page, and then consistently talking about it in a very organized fashion, I think led a lot to where we were going and how we were going to get there. And then you could break down the key goals from there. And, you know, a high performance organization has to have performance measurements and that investment of choice side of it. But if you take so much of your emphasis there, you forget about your team and you forget about your customers. So I want to, as I look back, one of the best things that we did was really build a foundation upon that.
It's been amazing to see, and it's been fun to watch. What When you take and think of cascading a message, and you're so distributed, you got locations all over the country, a couple different kinds of locations, and for everybody to know, with all smiles on my face that most people can't see, you know, I live on a hobby farm these days with my wife and 4 kids, and we have all green because of this relationship, and we have tractor and gator and snow removal and a lot of green equipment, all John Deere. We're happy as can be with it, and we're looking at getting something new here before long. My dad, as you know, I grew up on, we joke, kind of a multicolor farm where we had red and green tractors, even yellow ones. But Dad, in his later days, when he was 80, I think it was 82, he bought his first brand new tractor, and it was a John Deere tractor. And he's 93 in a month, and wow. And he is still running the farm, and I was up there, and he's fixing the hurricane came through a few months ago, and he's up there putting tin on one of the sheds himself, and it's been fun to see. But you've got a lot of great great brand, you got a great organization, great dealers, but it's distributed. How do you keep that common language going? You say we got this common language, you got this mission now, we got this 3-legged stool, you've built many things now on trust. How do you cascade that from, Idaho Falls to Alabama?
Well, it's first and foremost, I think it is the consistency of the character of the people that we have. And if we're all on the same page, if we have the right intent, you can get a lot done. And so I think the foundation of it all is the people that we have, the team that we have. And, we have oftentimes, we talk a lot about if it's right for the customer, if it's right for the companies that we work for or work with, the suppliers, if it's right for our company, and it's right for our employees, and it's morally, legally, and ethically correct, make the decision. And we empower our people at the local level to make some really, really important and great decisions for our customers and for our employees. And so, we're very much all over the place. Like you said, we have in our ag stores, we're in 6 different states. With material handling, we go out to 10, 11 different states, and we have customers all throughout the world. But the reality is that the foundation of the morals, ethics, and values and who we are, you don't have to talk to everybody or every day to tell them what to do and how to do things. There's a great deal of trust because they live the character that we're looking for. And then
I'm going to jump in here, Kent. How do you hire for that? Because you got a lot of people that say, well, yeah, I wish I had that. How can you say you have all these high character folks? How do I actually create that team that does have the right values and morals that fits us, that can make decisions on their own at a high level? How do you do that? That's what I can hear people asking.
Sure, absolutely. Well, number one, we get lucky, sprinkle some magic dust everywhere, right? And not always do we have everybody that way, but I would say the vast majority of it is, and if I look back at it, we have instituted regional managers who are really high quality regional managers. They work with our VPs all the time. And in doing so, we have a work hard, play hard relationship at our company. And, I often think about it this way, David, that you can fool somebody for 20 minutes or half an hour or maybe even an hour. But when you have a work hard, play hard relationship and you build those connections that are deep, if you're not following the same moral, legal, ethical characteristics, then that shows up. It comes up and it shows up over time. And so once you build that, I think kind of people weed themselves out and the character of our company stands firm and stands strong. And you want to work with and you want to connect with people that are much like yourself. So starting small, it's really building connections. And I think about it let's take it in a different way if we could for a second. The reason I know you, David, is because one of my childhood lifelong friends, Ross Bernstein, connected us. Well, Ross wouldn't have connected us if he didn't think it was mutually good for you and mutually good for me. He wouldn't have connected us if he thought our morals and ethics and values were different. he would have refrained from ever having that connection together. But now, that was 14 years ago, and you and I are as connected sometimes as Ross and I are. And I think that's true for our employees as well.
Absolutely. Well, Ross is an amazing human being and a dear friend, and definitely a lot of when he recommended you, it was like absolutely as well. How do you keep your people? I'll give you two questions at once. Retention is a big problem right now. How do you keep the right people? And you said you build connection. How do you actually build connection? Whether it's with your leadership team or with those people. I think a lot of people are having trouble right now building connection, especially here you sit, at the corporate office, and you've got people way out here. You're buying that new property or new location down in Alabama or whatever. Like, how do you increase connection, and how do you actually retain the talent you want to keep?
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about what people often refer to as the great resignation and quiet quitting and all these different things that are out there today, right? Well, the reality is we've been very fortunate not to have that. Number one, we have not seen a large reduction in people that are employed with us. And largely because I think we care, and we've connected in a different level. I've been blessed to work with and for the Burwell family for years, and so much of what they offer is really this connection piece. It's talking and working, not just the normal 8 to 5 hours, but we're connecting on a personal level. We go do things together, and in fact, during work hours, we do things like so we have a community impact day where we're going out into the community, the whole store, whether you're in Billings, Montana, or you're in Shreveport, Louisiana. That team goes out as a whole. They select a charitable organization to work with, and we pay them that day to go out into the community, do something great. Well, the reality is, I think people love the purpose of working together for something greater than themselves, and greater actually than just the business themselves. And so when you combine all those things together, I think it's been really, really cool. I'd also say some of the things that we have done here in the last little bit have also connected in a meaningful way. So inflation has come into our environment pretty significantly, and we recognize that in a lot of our employees, whether you're making a little bit of money or a lot of money, they tend to spend the money that they make. And so when you go from $3 gas to $4.50 gas or whatever it is, that has a significant impact on what the family can do. So we instituted and gave everybody in the company a 5% raise just out of the blue, and announced it January 4th and said, we understand what the economy is like. We want to do the right thing for you because you're part of the family. Those kind of things. And then most importantly, remembering that our team has obligations into the community and into their family, and recognizing the importance of that, I think has people really interested in who we are. We're blessed to have this really good connected team. And I think it comes from years of working together with them hand in hand, close together. And Rod Burwell used to say, Kent, there's a couple different pieces of advice he had for me is, number one, you can't have experienced people if you don't give them experiences. So go out there, give them experiences, but don't do it for them. And he often said as well, let them put holes in the boat, just don't let them sink it. Well, the reality is we're looking for leaders. We're looking for people who can connect with customers in a meaningful way. And if you tighten down what they can do and what they can say so much so, they're not really leaders for what the customer wants and what we want. They're people that are carrying out a mission, or carrying out a tactic, if you will. We try to keep it more broad and say, again, if you can do the right thing for the customer and the supplier and the company and the employees, and it's morally, legally, and ethically correct, make the decision. Have broad, if you will, lanes that people can walk within, not tight sidewalks.
Most training and development initiatives don't last or even solve the root problem hindering an organization. That's where TrustEdge certification comes in. TrustEdge certified partners are equipped with a suite of tools to identify, benchmark, and close gaps in trust for good. Because when you solve the real issue, you get measurable results and a culture where people actually want to make an impact. So whether you're a trainer, a manager, an HR executive, or a leader in learning and development, check out trustedgeplatform.com and see how you can start solving the root issue and get lasting results in your organization. And now back to the show.
How do you hold people accountable? Like, how do you hold them? Because you have amazing connection, you have amazing people. I've met many of them, and I do see this values-driven environment. I see the work hard part for sure and play hard. But at some point, you got to hold them accountable to the KPIs and everything. So some people, there's a lot of talk today about just connecting, just showing care, just showing compassion. And yet I see the healthiest companies have this mix of a healthy accountability, and I see frustrated CEOs. Well, they're all saying do this and this and this for my employees, and then I found out they aren't even doing anything for us, and I've got to take care of the stakeholders. So you have this mix, I feel like, of what you say, which for many would be trite. Oh, just play hard, work hard, or work hard, play hard. But you do it, and they are working hard, and they are hitting KPIs, and they are moving the organization forward, and they are motivated. And yet there's some sort of clear accountability. How do you do it?
Well, thank you. But, and hopefully it didn't sound trite as much as it is the characteristics of the team of we go out and we go do things collectively together. But really, we're a performance-based organization. We talk performance a lot every week. In fact, let's go back. Every day we're measuring our key KPIs, as you put it, and making sure we're doing the right thing where we trend a lot. We look not just at a point in time, but rather a trend in which way we're going. You can have a scenario where all of a sudden something falls off, but if the trend is going in the right direction, we tend to follow more the trend than the actual individual score, if you will. But we're watching it on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And on the weekly calls that we have with our team, we cover those same dashboard measurements over and over again every week. We cover them, whether the week was a good week or a bad week. We generally start our meetings a little bit wider open. So we talk more about the company, and then we narrow it down into the scope of maybe the department or the store or the person. And then really we recognize high performers, and it's high performers that are doing the right things, not just high performance for high performance. And I think, the long and short of it, we've built also an incentive plan and a pay plan that rewards people for hitting this investment of choice. And by the way, we are a for-profit company. We have to provide profits for the company to be able to provide back to the employees. And it's that three-legged stool again. If we talk about it often, if we cannot perform to the level that we can perform to, we can't do the other things really, really well. We can't invest in technology. We can't invest in taking care of the customer if we can't also get a reward for it as well ourselves. So I think a lot of it really is the commitment to a standard smaller list of KPIs. I think it's consistency that we bring with it in talking about it and working through it often. And I think I believe that once somebody falls out of that, we definitely show grace, but you have to be an active participant in the improvement of it as well. And if you're not, that demonstrates not an engaged employee. So I'd like to say it's this nirvana place. It isn't absolutely nirvana, but it is a place where high productive, highly engaged employees do really well.
You say, if it's hard to sell, make it easy to buy.
Yeah.
Tell me about, I'm going to give you a couple of your quotes back to you that I hear from you, and then I'm going to land the plane on a couple of personal leadership thoughts. But give the idea. That's a quote around CMB and your world. It's if it's hard to sell, make it easy to buy. How do you do it?
Well, you got to think of the customer and what they're looking for from a standpoint of not a feature and benefit, but what's the value that we can produce for the customer, and then turn that around and help the customer see the value first. I think there's a guy, one of your friends, Phil Jones, says it really, really well, in that there's this value proposition with your hands, and you got to be able to, if your value is extended out further than the price, and then it's all about price. But if the value extends closer or brings closer, it's about the value. And oftentimes, I think a lot of salespeople, even within our organization, they cut right to price. They cut right to something that doesn't extend the value and really what the customer is looking for. And to first create value, you got to listen. You got to have curiosity, and you have to have compassion for where the customer is at. And when you go from curiosity to compassion, you can really go into and help that customer find the value proposition. So we like to find those reasons why the customer really would like to buy the product, as opposed to selling something that's really not what the customer needs.
I'm going to give two more quotes, then I'm going to land the plane with a personal question, but I like these things that you have said and I have heard. One, you're allowed to be critical only when you're creative in helping find the solution.
Yeah.
You got an example of some? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I use that one all the time. In fact, people use it back on me as well. So, it's part of the culture when all of a sudden you come in and you say, why did you do that? Or why didn't we hit this? And they say, well, what's your creative solution, Kent? And if you know me well enough, I'm a highly creative visual guy. So it's fun to be a part of those conversations, especially when they use it back. But I will tell you, we talk about it often. You can be highly critical of a person or a process or whatever, but in that phrase, in that moment, help us understand how are we going to do it better from your perspective. And if you can't be there, then don't bring the argument up. And that often leads into, David, too, another one that we say fairly often, that if it doesn't stand a good debate, a great debate in our boardroom, it will not withstand the marketplace. So let's be honest. We have a thing, we talk about it oftentimes too. When you come through the threshold of the meeting, you get into the get honest room. We're very honest with each other, but you can't be adversarial honest. You have to be creative in helping us find the solution.
I love it. I got a new one here then. I'm writing it down. Creative honest versus adversarial honest.
Yeah.
Good word. Well, there's lots more. I love what you're doing. I love that idea. What the critical piece, what we just talked about, it keeps people solution-minded, right? When we think of, okay, but be a part of the solution. That's what we want to drive people toward. Be a part of the solution. There's more we can do than you think we can do when we get solution-minded. It also reminds me of my own work where, I teach these 8 pillars. I'm very open with the team that I'm imperfect at all of them. Just ask my teenagers. But I believe in it to my core. I've seen it on 6 continents and across industries, from pro sports teams to companies and corruption issues and whatever. But I'm imperfect at it. And one of the things I teach and preach is the first pillar of the 8 pillars, which is clarity. And one of the models we have is ODC. When you expect something from whenever you're managing someone, give them a clear outcome, a deadline for the next phase. It doesn't have to be the end because you may not know the final, and then give a space for clarifying questions, ODC. And I'll ask something and not have given a clear deadline or given a clear outcome, and they go right back at me. Okay, Dave, what's the ODC? What's the did you ODC that? And I love that when there's a safe enough space in your organization where people can push back on you. And I know the reason people can do that with you is you're a great leader and you're a humble learner, always learning and willing to take it. And I just think it's worth saying today, because the last call I was on with a significant leader, we talked about this, how there's a lot of arrogant leaders today. And here's one truth about arrogant leaders. They're all opposed. There's something in our universe that opposes the proud. It opposes, but for those that are humble, people want to get behind them. They want to, work for them. They want to follow them because they know they will take another opinion. They will listen. Maybe not always, but that humility that you have, I think, in the midst of competency and strength and a lot of wisdom is one of the things that makes you a great leader. Kent, let's go personal. I've learned that great leaders do something well at home. They have certain habits. You're imperfect like I am, but they whether it's physical or with the exercise with their family. We all want to do other things differently. You have a beautiful family. It's amazing. But what are some habits? Any habits you have at home that keep you either physically or emotionally fit so that you can be a great leader at work?
Oh, wow. Well, thanks for also for the comments a second ago. So when I think about habits, things that maybe that are characteristic of who I am and what I do on a daily basis, a couple of them probably that stand out is I wake up every morning at 5 a.m. or 5:30, and I never really set an alarm. In fact, my wife is often amazed that I'll need to get going and travel 6 o'clock in the morning or whatever it is, and I don't set an alarm. I just have the old farm boy mentality of get up before everybody else does and get the work done. I am Maynard Senf's son, and even at 53 years old, that still connects with me today. My dad was also a person who taught me that work hard. You will not outwork me, is his saying, and work starts in the morning. And for me, it's different than what it was for my dad. And work is oftentimes starting, and I like to read or listen to books, podcasts, news first thing in the morning. A lot of times 30, 45 minutes, I'm learning about what's going on. And I travel enough. I like to listen to books on tape as well as have them in person as well, and take notes. And one of the fun things is I'm right back to Dave Horsager's Daily Edge that I did. I got your book a long time ago. I went through it, but as I took on this president role, one of the things I wanted to do is get back to some of those Daily Edge tactics that you have. And really mind mapping is something that I call it something different, but I use that most every morning. I'm a visual person, a creative person. I'll oftentimes draw what I want the future to look like, and then use that to help get people to see what I'm envisioning or what I want to envision. And then once I believe that they can see it, David, I believe that they will believe in it and they become committed to it and they act on it as a result. And I spend a lot of time, probably most often in the morning, just connecting with those kind of either I'm reading or I'm listening to a book on tape or a podcast, or I'm taking the time to reflect and say, where do we really want to be 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year down the road, or at some point in time? And I have a notebook. Oftentimes I'll write those down. And the last one I have picked up, in the last probably year or so, success leaves clues. That's another one that's a big saying out there. But I've created a notebook that anytime that we've had this a recent success, or I look back on success, I'm jotting those down, and I'm trying to figure out where did that success originate from, and then and oftentimes going back to that and saying, how do we replicate that same success? So I don't know if that was what you were looking for.
Love it.
But that's what I do.
I love it. Read, keep putting good input in, podcasts, reading, take time to journal. I can't tell you how many leaders I work with when I say, what are a few of your success habits? Journaling is one of them. And that's like you're talking about, journaling, drawing it out, mind mapping it, whatever it is, because there's something that happens when pen hits the paper and we kind of write through the problem or think through it or whatever. So everybody, there's one final question before we get there. We will put in the show notes where you can find Kent on LinkedIn and more about C&B operations and his great work and his role there. We'll put all those links in the show notes, trustedleadershow.com. But we always have one final question. It's a Trusted Leader Show, Kent. Who is a leader you trust and why?
Oh my gosh. Well, so I guess if I'm going to go think back to all the different leaders I've had, and I've been blessed to be a part of, probably one of the ones that stands out most to me is a personal one, a guy named Bob or Robert Radcliffe. And he was the founder of AGCO Corporation. And unfortunately, he passed away in 2017. But I was very fortunate to work with him when I was at AGCO years ago. And one of the reasons why I probably liked his leadership style the most is he was very, very performance oriented, David, and he knew the numbers extraordinarily well. But one thing that stands out and stands firm with me in thinking back about Bob Ratliff, was that one day he came up to me and he said, "Kent, how's things going?" And I said, "Well, Bob, we're 100 and X% of plan, and we're doing this," because I knew he was a very performance-based person. And he had these big, huge hands, and he put his hand on my shoulder and he said, "No, Kent, what I ask you is, how are you doing? I can read the numbers too."
Powerful. Cared about you. Mentored you.
He cared about me.
Kent, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing with all of our guests and our audience. There's lots more we could say. I'm just so grateful for our friendship, all the good work you're doing in work and in play, at home and around the world. So thank you so much for joining us. This has been the Trusted Leader Show. Until next time, stay trusted.